CIA mind control experiments. The CIA secretly dosed thousands of unwitting Americans with LSD to test mind control techniques between 1953 and 1973. MK-Ultra operated across more than 80 institutions, including hospitals, universities, and prisons, targeting patients, students, and prisoners who never consented to becoming human test subjects. Dr. Ewan Cameron at Montreal's Allen Memorial Institute erased patients' memories using electroshock therapy, sensory deprivation, and massive LSD doses. He kept subjects in drug-induced comas for weeks while playing recorded messages on loop, attempting to rebuild their personalities from scratch. CIA operative Dr. Sidney Gottlieb personally oversaw experiments where agents slipped LSD into drinks at parties and brothels to observe reactions. The program only came to light in 1975 when the Church Committee investigated intelligence abuses. CIA Director Richard Helms had ordered most MK-Ultra files destroyed in 1973, but surviving documents revealed the agency had violated the Nuremberg Code and conducted illegal human experimentation on American soil. Victims sued successfully, though many suffered permanent psychological damage from treatments that resembled torture more than medicine. Nazi scientists in America. The U.S. government secretly recruited over 1,600 Nazi scientists immediately after World War II, ignoring their war crimes to gain access to advanced rocket and chemical weapons technology. Operation Paperclip ran from 1945 to 1959, bringing former SS officers and concentration camp researchers directly into American military programs. Wernher von Braun, who used slave labor to build V-2 rockets that killed Allied civilians, became NASA's chief rocket engineer and designed the Saturn V that put Americans on the moon. Kurt Blohm, who conducted biological warfare experiments on concentration camp prisoners, was hired by the U.S. Army Chemical Corps to continue his research on American soil. The operation remained classified for decades while these scientists received new identities, security clearances, and leadership roles in America's space and weapons programs. Declassified documents in the 1970s revealed that intelligence officials had deliberately concealed Nazi backgrounds and whitewashed personnel files to avoid public scrutiny. Many of the scientists never faced prosecution for their wartime activities. FBI's War on Activists. The FBI secretly monitored, harassed, and attempted to destroy civil rights leaders and anti-war activists through a covert program that violated citizens' constitutional rights for 15 years. COINTELPRO operated from 1956 to 1971, targeting everyone from Martin Luther King Jr. to peaceful student protesters with surveillance, blackmail, and psychological warfare. J. Edgar Hoover's agents broke into homes, planted evidence, forged letters to create conflicts between groups, and spread disinformation to discredit activists. They sent King an anonymous letter with secret recordings suggesting he commit suicide, infiltrated the Black Panthers with provocateurs who encouraged violence, and used illegal wiretaps to gather blackmail material on thousands of Americans. The program only came to light when burglars calling themselves the Citizens Commission to investigate the FBI broke into a Pennsylvania field office in 1971 and stole classified documents. The stolen papers revealed COINTELPRO's existence and tactics, forcing congressional investigations that exposed how the FBI had operated as a domestic secret police force. Hoover officially terminated the program once it became public, though critics argue similar surveillance continued under different names. Air Force UFO investigations. U.S. Air Force systematically investigated over 12,000 UFO reports for 17 years, while publicly dismissing flying saucers as mass hysteria or misidentified aircraft. Project Blue Book ran from 1952 to 1969, collecting detailed witness statements, photographs, and radar data that military officials often explained away despite compelling evidence. Captain Edward Ruppelt led the program's most serious phase, investigating cases like the 1952 Washington, D.C. UFO incident, where multiple radar operators tracked unknown objects over the Capitol, while Air Force jets scrambled to intercept them. The Condon Committee's 1968 scientific study concluded that UFOs posed no national security threat and recommended ending official investigations. The Air Force closed Project Blue Book in 1969, claiming 701 cases remained unidentified but posed no threat to national security. Declassified files released decades later revealed that military officials had privately acknowledged some sightings, defied conventional explanation while maintaining public skepticism. Building the atomic bomb. The United States secretly developed the world's first nuclear weapons through a massive industrial project that employed 130,000 people who had no idea what they were building. The Manhattan Project ran from 1942 to 1946, operating across dozens of sites from Los Alamos to Oak Ridge, while maintaining complete secrecy about its true purpose. General Leslie Groves and physicist Robert Oppenheimer led the effort to create weapons using uranium and plutonium, elements so rare that workers had to construct entire cities just to produce bomb-grade materials. At Oak Ridge, Tennessee, thousands of women operated massive enrichment machines without knowing they were separating uranium isotopes, while scientists at Los Alamos worked behind barbed wire to design the actual weapons. The project's secrecy was so complete that Vice President Harry Truman only learned about atomic bombs after Roosevelt's death in April 1945. Workers at various sites knew only their specific tasks, never the final goal, while security agents monitored conversations and mail to prevent leaks. America ultimately spent about $2 billion at the time, roughly $30 billion in today's dollars, on weapons that would reshape global politics forever. False flag attack plans. Pentagon officials secretly planned to stage terrorist attacks against American civilians and blame Cuba to justify military invasion in 1962. Operation Northwoods proposed sinking ships, hijacking planes, and conducting bombings that would kill innocent Americans while creating false evidence of Cuban involvement. Joint Chiefs of Staff Chairman Lyman Lemnitzer presented detailed plans to Defense Secretary Robert McNamara that included attacking the U.S. naval base at Guantanamo Bay and shooting down a civilian airliner filled with college students. The proposals specified how to plant Cuban weapons at attack sites and how to use fake radio transmissions to implicate Fidel Castro's government. President John F. Kennedy rejected the plans outright and soon after fired Lemnitzer as Joint Chiefs Chairman. The documents remained classified for nearly 40 years until the JFK Assassination Records Review Board released them in 2001, revealing how senior military officials had seriously considered murdering American citizens to manufacture justification for war. CIA controls news media. The CIA secretly recruited hundreds of American journalists and news executives to plant stories and shape public opinion through a covert influence operation that lasted over 2 decades. This effort, often referred to by journalists as Operation Mockingbird, though no official program name was ever declassified, began in the 1950s, placing agency assets inside major newspapers, magazines, and television networks to spread propaganda and suppress unfavorable coverage. CIA Director Alan Dulles personally cultivated relationships with publishers like Henry Luce of Time magazine and executives at CBS, while agency operatives fed stories to reporters at the New York Times, Washington Post, and Associated Press. Journalists on the CIA payroll wrote articles promoting agency interests, while editors killed stories that might expose sensitive operations or embarrass foreign allies. The operation's existence emerged during the 1975 Church Committee hearings when former CIA officials testified about media manipulation efforts. Investigations revealed that the agency had spent millions annually to influence American news coverage, treating domestic media as an extension of its foreign propaganda apparatus. CIA spies on Americans. The CIA illegally surveilled thousands of American citizens on U.S. soil through a domestic spying program that violated the agency's charter for 7 years. Operation Chaos ran from 1967 to 1974, targeting anti-war protesters, civil rights activists, and student groups with wiretaps, mail intercepts, and infiltration, despite CIA restrictions against domestic operations. Agency Director Richard Helms ordered the program to identify foreign influence in domestic protest movements, but it quickly expanded to monitor purely American political activities. CIA operatives maintained files on over 300,000 Americans, photographed demonstrators at rallies, and recruited campus informants to report on student organizations opposing the Vietnam War. The operation came to light during the 1975 Church Committee investigations into intelligence abuses following Watergate. Congressional hearings revealed that the CIA had maintained a massive domestic surveillance apparatus while publicly denying any involvement in monitoring American citizens. Untreated disease study. The U.S. Public Health Service deliberately withheld treatment from 399 black men with advanced illness for 40 years to study disease progression without their knowledge or consent. The Tuskegee syphilis study ran from 1932 to 1972, telling participants they were receiving free health care for bad blood, while doctors observed how untreated illness damaged their bodies, hearts, and nervous systems. Researchers recruited poor sharecroppers in rural Alabama, providing free meals and burial insurance but never informing them of their actual diagnosis. When penicillin became available as an effective cure in the 1940s, doctors deliberately prevented patients from receiving treatment, even blocking them from getting antibiotics through other medical programs during World War II. A public health service whistleblower finally exposed the study to journalists in 1972, sparking national outrage and immediate termination of the program. Congressional hearings revealed that dozens of men had died from preventable complications, while their families unknowingly contracted the disease. The scandal led to fundamental changes in medical research ethics, including requiring requirements for informed consent, and institutional review boards to protect human subjects. Telegraph message interception. The National Security Agency secretly intercepted and read millions of private telegrams sent by American citizens for 30 years through an illegal domestic surveillance program. Project Shamrock ran from 1945 to 1975, using major telegraph companies to provide copies of international messages while bypassing constitutional protections against warrantless searches. NSA officials convinced Western Union, ITT, and RCA Communications to hand over telegram traffic by claiming national security needs during the Cold War. The companies provided daily magnetic tapes containing hundreds of thousands of private messages between Americans and foreign contacts, including business communications, personal correspondence, and sensitive financial information. The program's existence surfaced during the 1975 Church Committee investigations into intelligence abuses following Watergate. Congressional hearings revealed that the NSA had maintained watch lists of American citizens and organizations while systematically violating the Fourth Amendment for 3 decades. Arms sales cover-up. Reagan administration officials secretly sold weapons to Iran and illegally funded anti-communist rebels in Nicaragua, using the proceeds, violating congressional prohibitions, and lying to lawmakers about the operation. The Iran-Contra affair ran from 1981 to 1987, circumventing laws that banned military aid to the Nicaraguan Contras, while simultaneously negotiating with Iranian terrorists. National Security Council staff led by Lieutenant Colonel Oliver North arranged arms sales through Israeli intermediaries, then diverted millions in profits to purchase weapons for Contra rebels fighting Nicaragua's leftist government. The scheme involved Swiss bank accounts, false end-user certificates, and elaborate cover stories to hide American involvement. The operation unraveled in 1986 when Nicaraguan forces shot down an American cargo plane carrying weapons to the Contras, capturing pilot Eugene Hazenfuss alive. Congressional hearings and an independent prosecutor's investigation revealed the full scope of the conspiracy, leading to criminal convictions for several officials including North and National Security Advisor John Poindexter. President Reagan claimed ignorance of the illegal activities, but faced intense scrutiny over his administration's lawbreaking. Mass digital surveillance. The National Security Agency secretly collected emails, photos, and private communications from millions of Americans through a program that turned major tech companies into unwilling government surveillance partners. PRISM operated from 2007 onward, accessing user data from Google, Facebook, Apple, and Microsoft without individual warrants or public knowledge. NSA analysts could search through vast databases containing Americans' personal messages, browsing histories, and stored files by simply typing in email addresses or phone numbers. The agency collected hundreds of millions of records monthly, storing everything from vacation photos to private conversations while claiming to target only foreign intelligence. The program's existence became public in 2013 when former NSA contractor Edward Snowden leaked classified documents to journalists, sparking global outrage over government overreach. The revelations showed that intelligence officials had secretly expanded surveillance authorities far beyond what Congress intended, collecting domestic communications on an industrial scale. Legal challenges and public pressure eventually led to reforms limiting bulk data collection, though debate continues over the proper balance between security and privacy. NATO's secret armies. Western intelligence agencies secretly organized stay-behind military networks across Europe during the Cold War, training civilian operatives to conduct sabotage and guerrilla warfare if Soviet forces invaded. Operation Gladio ran from the 1950s to 1990s, establishing hidden weapons caches and recruiting fighters who could operate behind enemy lines. The CIA and NATO coordinated with local intelligence services to build these clandestine armies in countries like Italy, Belgium, and West Germany. Recruits received training in explosives, communications, and assassination techniques while maintaining normal civilian lives as shopkeepers, farmers, and office workers who could activate during wartime. The network's existence emerged in 1990 when Italian Prime Minister Giulio Andreotti revealed Gladio's operations to Parliament following investigations into domestic terrorism. European parliamentary inquiries discovered that stay-behind units had sometimes been linked to right-wing extremist groups and may have conducted false flag attacks to discredit leftist political movements. The revelations caused political scandals across Europe as governments acknowledged their involvement in decades-long covert operations. Japanese human experiments. The Imperial Japanese Army secretly conducted biological warfare experiments on thousands of prisoners during World War II, testing deadly diseases and performing live dissections to develop weapons for mass destruction. Unit 731 1 operated from the 1930s to 1945 in occupied China, using Chinese civilians, Soviet prisoners, and Allied POWs as human test subjects. Dr. Shiro Ishii led the program from a massive complex near Harbin, where researchers infected prisoners with plague, anthrax, and cholera to study disease progression. Scientists performed surgery without anesthesia, froze limbs to test frostbite treatments, and conducted pressure chamber experiments that killed subjects through decompression while doctors observed the effects. The unit's activities came to light after Japan's surrender, when American occupation forces discovered the facility and interviewed surviving researchers. Post-war tribunals confirmed that Unit 731 had killed at least 3,000 people through medical experiments that violated all international laws. The United States secretly granted immunity to Japanese scientists in exchange for their research data, allowing war criminals to escape prosecution, while America gained access to biological weapons intelligence. World War II Deception Operation. British intelligence successfully fooled Nazi Germany into defending the wrong beaches during D-Day by using a dead homeless man and fake documents to create an elaborate military deception. Operation Mincemeat ran in 1943, transforming a corpse into a fictional Royal Marines officer carrying false invasion plans that redirected German forces away from the real landing sites. Intelligence officers dressed the body as Major William Martin, planted love letters and theater tickets in his pockets, and chained a briefcase containing fake military documents to his wrist. A submarine deployed the corpse off Spain's coast, where German agents recovered the body and transmitted the false intelligence to Berlin, convincing Hitler that Allied forces would invade Greece instead of Sicily. The operation succeeded beyond expectations when German commanders moved entire divisions to defend against the fictional Greek invasion, leaving Sicily vulnerable to actual Allied assault. Post-war records confirmed that Nazi intelligence had completely believed the planted documents, demonstrating how a single dead body and carefully crafted lies could redirect an entire enemy army and change the course of World War II. Soviet submarine recovery. The CIA secretly spent about $800 million at the time, roughly $4 billion in today's dollars, to steal a sunken Soviet nuclear submarine from the ocean floor using a massive mining ship that operated under corporate cover for 6 years. Project Azorian ran in 1974, attempting to recover a ballistic missile submarine that had sunk in the Pacific, with nuclear warheads and Soviet codebooks aboard. Howard Hughes provided cover for the operation through his Soma Corporation, claiming the ship Glomar Explorer was mining manganese nodules from the seafloor. The vessel actually contained a giant mechanical claw designed to grab the submarine from 3 miles underwater, while Soviet ships monitored nearby waters, unaware of the true mission. The operation partially succeeded when the claw lifted sections of the submarine, but broke apart during recovery, dropping most of the vessel back to the ocean floor. The CIA officially acknowledged Project Azorian in 2010, revealing how American engineers had built one of the most complex deep-sea recovery systems ever attempted while maintaining perfect operational security for decades. East German surveillance state. The East German secret police operated the most extensive domestic surveillance network in human history, recruiting 1 in 3 citizens to spy on their neighbors, friends, and family members. The Stasi employed 91,000 full-time officers and 189,000 unofficial informants from the 1950s to 1989, creating detailed files on 6 million people in a country of just 17 million. Officers used sophisticated psychological techniques to break down targets through a process called decomposition, systematically destroying relationships, careers, and mental health without leaving evidence of state involvement. They recruited informants through blackmail, ideology, or simple payment, turning apartments into surveillance posts and workplaces into information-gathering networks. The surveillance apparatus collapsed with the Berlin Wall in 1989, and German reunification opened the Stasi archives to public inspection. Citizens discovered that intimate friends, spouses, and even children had reported their private conversations to state security for decades. The files revealed how totalitarian surveillance had poisoned social trust and demonstrated the human cost of living under constant government observation.